I know the feeling. You scroll through a dozen welding tables on Amazon, each one promising a rock-solid surface, a massive load rating, and a price that looks too good to be true. Then you finally click Add to Cart, only to find the table you get is wobblier than a cheap workbench, the surface scratches after a single pass with a torch, and the promised 2,000-pound capacity feels more like a marketing gimmick than reality. That gap between glossy listing photos and the actual day-to-day experience is what makes me nervous about any big-ticket workshop gear. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Tru Fab 48x48x36 steel welding table tries to close that gap. At first glance it looks like the kind of heavy-duty platform you'd find in a professional shop, a solid steel frame, a flat nitrided top, and a built-in tooling grid that promises to keep clamps, magnets, and hand tools exactly where you need them. What matters, though, is how those claims translate when you're actually welding a car chassis, a piece of pipe, or a custom art project. I've spent the past few weeks looking at the specs, watching a handful of Hansen videos, and talking to a couple of welders who have already put the Tru Fab to work, so let's break down what you're really getting. First, the construction. The frame is welded from 2-inch square steel tubing, and the tabletop is a 1-inch nitrided steel plate. Nitriding is a heat treatment process that hardens the surface without adding a coating that can chip. In practice that means the surface stays flat and resists the kind of gouging you get when a torch tip slips. For a hobbyist who does a few projects a month, that durability can save you the hassle of resurfacing or buying a replacement top. For a shop that runs continuous TIG or MIG work, the hardened surface also reduces the wear from repeated magnet placement and clamp pressure. The table's flatness is another point that people often overlook until they try to tack a joint together. According to the manufacturer, the top is precision machined to stay within 1/10 of an inch over the full 48-inch span. In the real world, that translates to fewer gaps when you line up a long weld seam. I've seen a friend set up a 6-foot pipe run on a similar size table, and the fact that the surface didn't bow under the weight of the pipe clamps meant his tack ends were clean and required less filler material. If you're the type who measures every joint, that flatness will give you a tangible advantage. Capacity is where the 2,000-pound claim gets tested. The table is rated for a static load of 2,000 pounds, which is enough to hold a small engine block, a few sheets of steel, or a large piece of pipe without sagging. In a shop where you might load a 1,500 pounds engine while you're welding the mounts, that rating offers peace of mind. However, the rating is static. It doesn't account for dynamic forces like hammering or moving the table while it's loaded. If you regularly drop heavy parts onto the surface or use the table as a makeshift hoist, you'll need to think twice. Most welders I've spoken to use the table for stationary work, not as a lifting platform, and that's where the rating shines. The built-in tooling grid is a practical feature that often gets lost in marketing blurbs. The grid consists of evenly spaced slots that accept standard clamps, magnetic bases, and even a small vise. In a typical day, you might have a pair of clamps holding a 2x4 brace while you tack a metal frame, a magnetic base keeping a MIG gun steady, and a small bench vise holding a piece of metal for a precise fillet. All of those accessories can snap into place without drilling holes or using makeshift clamps. For a welder who values a tidy workspace and quick reconfiguration, the grid cuts down on setup time. On the flip side, the slots are fixed. You can't add a custom arrangement that isn't already supported by the standard size. If you rely on oversized clamps or specialty fixtures, you might find the grid a bit limiting. Stability is another area where the Tru Fab tries to differentiate itself. The base is adjustable with lockable caster wheels, letting you level the table on uneven floors. In a home garage with a concrete slab that's a few millimeters low on one side, those adjustments make a noticeable difference. Once the wheels are locked, the table feels as steady as a bolted-down bench. That said, the wheels are not heavy-duty industrial casters. They're designed for occasional repositioning, not for being rolled across a shop floor all day. If you need a table you can move constantly, you might want to bolt it down permanently or look for a model with larger, lock-up casters. So, who should consider buying the Tru Fab? If you're a serious hobbyist or a small shop welder who needs a reliable, flat surface for medium-sized projects. Think automotive repairs, custom metal art, or fabricating brackets. The table hits a sweet spot. It's